alternate cooking methods. Ways to cook your food should there be no power or gas or anything else being interrupted for whatever reason. We often think of these kind of interruptions as natural disasters or something major calamity. It doesn't have to be. Everything I'm going to show you here is functional, does what it's supposed to, but it's all about trade-offs. Now I'm going to start with, I have a lot of visual aids here today. I'm going to start with something I really couldn't bring in. Probably the one thing that you have, most of us have, that is a perfect or really good alternate cooking source is a barbecue. Most of us have a gas range, gas grill, maybe even a Weber grill that you have in your backyard with a rusted top or whatever it is. You have one of those. Maybe you have a little hibachi that you make burgers on in the summertime or you take to the beach. That is a really good alternate cooking method because you have a large supply of propane gas that goes along with it, and it serves many functions. If you are contemplating upgrading your barbecue or don't already, ensure that you get one with a side burner. So it has the barbecue grill lid, but it also has the side burner. If you sit there and go, well, I really don't have any need for that. I don't really need the side burner. If you get one, you'll really appreciate the fact that you're having burgers and corn on the cob for a picnic with your family. It's really nice when it's 95 degrees not to have to boil water inside your house. You can boil the water for the corn on the cob outside, and so it keeps your house cooler. Also, for alternate cooking methods, you have the burner. It's really inefficient to light your entire barbecue just to put a pot on to cook with it. Much more efficient to have the side burner that you can use to use a pot or to boil water or anything else out there. So probably the easiest method to have an additional cooking method is just a gas grill with the additional side burner. Some of them come with two. If you have the money, means, and desire to do so, good thing to have. With that barbecue, by the way, if you think about it, it's nothing more than a large oven. And so you can use your barbecue to turn it into an oven, just like you would cook inside your house. The only difference is it's a little less efficient because it's not, it has no thermal coating, thermal protection, no batting, no insulation, and so all the heat escapes. But you certainly can bake with it, just like you bake with your oven inside. If you are fortunate enough to have one that has a temperature gauge on the outside, you can set it, look at it, and say, I'm going to cook a cake. I'm going to make my tuna surprise casserole and put it on there. And it needs to cook for an hour, 325 minutes. You're smiling. Every one of you has made the tuna surprise casserole, right? Yeah, the surprise is, well, at least my mother's tuna surprise casserole, the surprise was it tasted terrible. I hated that one. But if you have the thermometer on the outside, you 350, you turn it up, adjust the temperature to 350 for an hour. Now remember, I said this is an inefficient way because it will take a lot of your propane to heat that, but it certainly is possible to do that. If you don't have the one with the thermometer on the outside, for relatively inexpensively, you can go buy a oven thermometer and stick it in there, or even if you want to get creative and more expensive, they have ones with the remote sensors. You put their sensor on the outside and it tells you what it is on the outside. And so you can control the temperature that way. So using a barbecue or grill or that kind of thing, or hibachi for that reason too, you can, with briquettes and that, you can cook meats, obviously, but you can also cook just like you would cook anything else in your oven with a hibachi or with a Weber grill, but you need something that's enclosed. A real hibachi would be terribly inefficient, but you certainly could do it. My secondary thing to use, and I didn't bring it because it's stuck in my trailer and I didn't want to dig out my trailer, is a camping stove. If you have a Coleman stove for camping that you keep in with the scout stuff, or you had a scout and you let him use it, or you used it on the last time you went on the fishing trip, a Coleman stove, either a liquid fueled stove or a propane canister stove, is an excellent way of cooking. Obviously, you cook when you're camping, it's the same thing. Using one of those is efficient and a very good way of of using an alternate cooking source for those two. And most of us have one or two of those. We either have a barbecue or we have a Coleman or some other brand camping stove to use. And so those are ones that most people already have, that you already have to make sure that to cook alternately. Stepping down the line from that, I should be not down the line, is something like this. This is a butane-powered stove. You might have seen these at somebody who's cooking outdoors. They use them a lot in cooking shows. They use them in restaurants that serve stuff outside. They are very efficient, small. They come in a package this big. They're not terribly expensive. I believe I got this one on sale. Normally about $25 a piece, but they go on sale. I believe I got this one for $14.99, for 15 bucks. And what they do is they take these canisters. These are a butane canister, one-time use. The side pops open. The canister fits in, closes up. You turn it on. It has a click, just like clicking your barbecue. Click, click, click. Suddenly it starts, and then you have a one-burner stove. On medium heat, which is just about hot enough to boil water or just about anything else you need, high heat for frying, one of these will last about 6 hours of cooking, give or take. One of the grill and the canisters, especially if you get it on sale, you have the cooking device and enough fuel to, if you were stingy with it, to cook for 3 to 5 days, maybe more, for about 20 bucks. And so I really like these. Unlike your barbecue, if you had your barbecue and you have to leave your house for some reason, it's kind of hard to pack your barbecue. That's why I didn't bring it today. It's not small enough. But this is very portable. Easy to take with you, very light. It weighs, with all the canisters, weighs less than about 4 or 5 pounds. And in fact, I carry mine, and Salvation Army was good enough to give me one of their bags. I carry all the fuel and everything else in that. Other alternate cooking supplies. This is a fold-up stove. These fold-up stoves are very nice for 72-hour kits or those kind of things. And they take what looks like a sterno can. This is not a sterno can. Sterno cans are made for warming food. They don't get hot enough to actually cook anything. It won't get hot enough to boil water. They maintain a warm temperature, but not hot. These canisters, they're called canned heat, or heat cells, I should say. These are much harder than your standard sterno cans. But these are gel and last a very long time. And simply the same thing. You put a pot on, put the can in, light it, and you're off to the races. Pretty simple. This can also be used with one of my other favorite cooking methods for this or just about anything else you can improvise. This is a can that had, I think, a Costco chicken or something like that in it. It's an aluminum tin with cardboard, lint, and wax from old candles. And so it literally cost me nothing. I had the cardboard laying around, I had the old candles laying around. I took the tin, cleaned it off, and melted the wax and put it in the can. When lit, this will light for, I don't know, ever. It lasts a very, very long time. And will cook, and will boil a small amount of water, which we'll get to in a minute. Also will work in this fold-up stove. And so you have the ability to use this. This is my other favorite thing. This is, actually, this, as odd as it seems, this is a Christmas present for my daughter. I make these, but she made them and gave them to me. What they are is egg crate. Same thing, it's lint from your dryer and wax. And you pour it into the egg crate. You cut one of these off and just light the cardboard, and this little cube will last for about 15 minutes. 2 of these is enough to boil 2 cups of water. That's really dirty, So it's going to get your pot all dirty, but it is a very easy way of starting a fire, maintaining a fire, and it'll just burn like crazy for about 15 or 20 minutes. Plenty of time to boil water. But these are also a really good fuel source in something like this as well. Or if you don't have something like that, you can literally just stack cans up and put a pot on it and put one of these underneath, and you're off to the races. The last one, or I should say maybe not last, but this one is also a folding stove, but much more compact than this one is, and much lighter. In fact, this is the one that I keep in my truck for emergency purposes. And it is a stove that uses these blocks of, one of these is enough to boil 2 cups of water. It will burn for about 15 minutes and boil 2 cups of water. You simply put one in the bottom, put your pot on top. The pot's small enough for that. And you'll be able to boil water to make food with. This is also a really good one for if you have a 72-hour kit or something like that and you need to put a stove in. It's small, it's relatively lightweight, and it is really efficient. Also, this kind of stove, as well as this kind of stove, you can use 1 or 2 briquettes. Light a briquette and put it under there, and it will also burn to give you heat. How many of you have ever seen an MRE, a meal ready to eat that the military have? Right? They are self-heating, right? They have a little heat. Don't laugh. They have everybody laughs when you say MREs. Some of them, not all of them, are really good. Well, this is much larger, but a heating unit, just like the MRE. It is, you know those hand warmers you stick in the window, you put your pockets in? Same thing, except on a larger scale. And this is big enough to put something like this, or a pot, or a food source, a can of food, or anything else in. And it is a one-time use, but it will cook up to a number 6 can, or 2 of them, of food. And so you can use this, something like this, to cook food with. Also good for 72-hour kits or something like that when you gotta leave, because it weighs nothing. It's less than half a pound. It's a little bulky, but it is quite good for heating elements. Now let's talk about a couple of other things when we're talking about cooking. I remember I kept talking about boiling a cup or 2 of water. When you have a limited source of fuel, you want to use the least amount of fuel to do whatever you need to do, right? If you're making hot chocolate for you and 2 people, you don't need a gallon of water to boil. And normally you just go to the kitchen, go to the sink, pour some in a pot, put it on there, you fill up the hot chocolate and throw the other water away. Well, that's an inefficient use of water, A. B, and it takes a lot more fuel to bring that 4 cups of water up to boil when you only need 1.5 or maybe 2. And so having pots or having stuff that is smaller and gives you the ability to cook a much smaller quantity of water, a smaller pot, and only boil the amount of water that you need to make whatever meal you're making. It doesn't waste water, and it doesn't waste any fuel, because the more water you have, the longer it takes for that water to come to a boil. So you want to use pots or anything else that pots or pans that only are small enough to contain the water. It's inefficient to take a pot this size and put 2 cups of water in it to try and boil it. The smaller the pot, the smaller the water, the smaller the pot. I'm a big fan of cast iron for a couple of reasons. One, it keeps and retains heat really, really well. And so for cooking efficiencies, it works really well. And I'll show you one of the reasons why retaining heat is really important. I have used my stove, and I've heated up my Dutch oven. And I'm cooking Aunt Glenda's tuna surprise in my Dutch oven. Well, it's supposed to come to a boil, the stew you're making, come to a boil, and then simmer for 20 or 30 minutes, and then then it's ready to eat. Then you need to let it cool down or something like that. Well, simmering takes fuel. Fuel takes energy, and fuel is limited. If you're cooking just about anything, or warming just about anything, there's a method called the hot box method. And that's what we're going to do here to cook beans, stews, anything that has to cook for a fair amount of time, any length of time. You put it in something, a pot that is equal to the contents that you have, as close as possible. If you have a heavy duty pot, doesn't have to be cast iron, but cast iron works really well. Put it on the stove and cook it. Then you take a inexpensive fleece blanket. Most of them are inexpensive, or I see people use sleeping bags, an old sleeping bag if you happen to have one, but this works quite well. And you put it in a box, or you can even put it in a laundry basket or an ice chest. Works really well for this thing. Trim it so it doesn't burn the bottom of your container. You've heated it up to boil. Once it comes to a boil, take it off the heat, place it on the trivet inside a box, wrap it up in your bag. If like this one would actually put two, but I wasn't going to bring 2 blankets, and then close it up. And then come back and let it sit for half an hour, 40 minutes, especially for baking beans or things like that. It will retain most or all of the heat in there. In fact, when you take it out, you'll be surprised at how hot it still is. You've created essentially a very large thermos for heating your and maintaining your food. And then you take it out, and you don't have to simmer it. It's simmering in its own heat, and will continue to do so until as long as you keep it in there. So you can use a laundry basket. An ice chest works really, really well. In fact, one time we were having a party, and I had to make 150 potatoes. We were having a potato bar, and I cooked them all the night before, and put them in a ice chest. The next day, I cooked them. I finished cooking them about 10 o'clock at night. The next day, got out, opened the lid. It was still 100 degrees plus, maybe. Inside there, all the baked potatoes were still warm, and they were still warm when we served them at noon the next day. So an ice chest or something like this is a great way of efficiently using your fuel so that you're not cooking and having to simmer it for a long period of time.